About a month ago, I did something that honestly, a lot of people thought was a little crazy. I sold the business that I'd spent almost 20 years building, packed up my entire life, moved my 2 dogs and my mom, and I started over in another country. England. And honestly, if you told me 10 years ago this would be my life, I would have laughed. Probably pretty hard. Because for most of my life, I thought I had my future figured out. For those of you who are new here, hi, I'm Darren Lee Cupp. And pretty much my whole life, I've been an entertainer. I've been a professional dancer, an actor, a choreographer, and for the last 18 years, I owned a ballroom dance studio in Indiana called Darren's Ballroom. And honestly, that place became such a huge part of who I was. I had routines, I had students that I loved, friends that felt like family to me, a schedule with a purpose, and honestly, I knew exactly what every single day looked like. And after a while, that kind of becomes your identity. You stop thinking about it. You just start assuming. This is your life. This is who you are. But somewhere along the way, something started changing. And I started asking myself questions I never thought I'd ask. Questions like, is this still the life that I want? Am I actually happy? What if there's something else? And trust me, that is absolutely terrifying after 20 years of building a career. So naturally, at 52 years old, I decided moving across the world sounded like a perfectly reasonable idea. Honestly, I'm still not sure if that was bravery or a mental breakdown or maybe even a little bit of both. But there was a reason. Actually, there were lots of reasons. Because the truth is, the version of America that I grew up believing in and the version I felt I was living in started to feel really different. And that is really where the story begins. I grew up in a military family, and like a lot of Americans, I was raised believing that America was the greatest country on earth. There was no place like it. And honestly, for a long time, I believed that completely. I was proud of where I came from. I believed in hard work. I believe in community and taking care of people. I believe in the version of America that I thought existed. And don't get me wrong, I built an amazing life there. I had an incredible business with amazing students and friends that I loved. Memories that I'm going to carry with me forever. This wasn't about me hating my life. It wasn't even really about me hating America. It was about something deeper. Something just started to feel off. And honestly, for me, COVID changed something. I can say that it started to change during the pandemic. It forced me to start watching more closely and listening closer, asking harder questions of myself. And I slowly started realizing that this country really doesn't have our backs at all. Now, as a professional dancer, healthcare was always in the back of my mind through my entire career. One injury, one accident, and everything changes. I also helped take care of my mom, and I just started realizing just how fragile security can feel in America. Between healthcare, housing, the cost of simply existing. People working harder and harder and somehow still falling behind. And I started asking myself, why does everything feel so hard? Why does it feel like people are surviving instead of actually living? The more I looked, the more heartbroken I became. Because I started realizing a lot of what America had become just didn't align with my values anymore. Things like kindness and healthcare and community, education and taking care of people, simple compassion. Those things matter deeply to me. Somewhere along the way, I realized that America just didn't feel like home to me anymore. And to to be completely honest, that realization really hurt. Nobody wants to feel disconnected from the place they grew up believing was home. I felt disappointed and I felt angry. And I realized that if I want a different life, I'm just going to have to build one. Somewhere else. And thankfully I had another place that I could call home. Because the truth is, not everybody gets that chance. At some point the dreaming stopped and then the planning started. Because once I made the decision, there was no halfway version of this. I wasn't moving down the street or moving to a different state. I was moving across an ocean. And suddenly everything becomes about logistics. Paperwork, lots of paperwork. Packing and selling things. Trying to figure out what part of your life makes the cut and what doesn't. And let me tell you, moving countries is going to make you question everything you own. Apparently, I had a very unhealthy emotional attachment to some completely random objects. Nobody really prepares you for how weird it feels watching your life slowly disappear into boxes. Every room starts looking unfamiliar. I can't even imagine how that felt for my boys to watch everything they loved around them disappear. It starts to feel like, wow, this is actually happening. I had to figure out shipping, what stays, what goes, what comes now and what's going to come later. And somehow, before you know it, your entire life ends up inside a shipping container. Which is honestly bizarre to think about because you're like, oh, everything I own now is floating across the Atlantic Ocean. Cool. No pressure. But honestly, the biggest thing I worried about wasn't me at all. It was my boys, Oliver and Charlie. Because if you know me at all, you know that they're my family. And the idea of putting them through a stressful move, especially Oliver with his anxiety, that was something I worried about constantly. I knew that if I was going to do this, I had to figure out how to do it right. And thankfully, I came across K9 Jet, which honestly felt like a miracle. Because instead of my dogs being cargo, they could actually travel in the cabin with us. And for me, that changed everything. I needed to know that they were okay. And somehow, what could have been the most stressful part of this entire move, well, it ended up being part of the smoothest. Customs literally came onto the plane. The boys did amazing. The flight went off without a hitch. It was very comfortable. And suddenly, we were here. England. And honestly, the strongest feeling I felt wasn't fear at all. It was relief. Real relief. Like for the first time in a really long time, I felt like I could exhale. After all the planning and all the stress, all the waiting, I was finally here. Home. Or at least what I hope will become my home. And honestly, for those first few weeks, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Eventually, something shifted. Not in a bad way, just different. Because once the excitement settles and all the boxes are unpacked and life slowly starts to feel normal, then something else creeps in. Quiet. And for the first time in a really long time, I had space. Real space. To think. To slow down and ask myself, okay, what now? And honestly, that question hit me harder than I expected. Because for about 20 years, my life had structure. People to see, places to be, business to run. Students that I really cared about and a routine. I knew exactly what every day was going to look like. And suddenly that entire structure was gone. Just gone. And I think what surprised me most was realizing that you can deeply love where you are and still miss a piece of what you left behind. Not necessarily America, but parts of my life. The people, the rhythm, the familiarity. The version of me that existed there. And I don't think anybody really talks enough about that part of reinvention. Because when you change your entire life, especially later in life, there's this weird moment where you realize you don't fully know what's going to come next. And to be honest, I think I started feeling a little directionless. Like, I knew I made the right decision. I never actually doubted that. But I also realized I wasn't entirely sure what the next chapter was going to look like yet. And then eventually, I started to realize something. Maybe I wasn't lost after all. Maybe it had just been a really long time since I was standing at the beginning. Because for most of my life, I knew exactly who I was. I knew what my days looked like. I knew my purpose. I had a very distinct rhythm of my life. And then suddenly, all of that space opened up again. I think that's really exciting. And a little terrifying. Because for the first time, and as long as I can remember, my future feels unwritten. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Because suddenly I get to ask a different question. Instead of who have I been, it's who do I want to become next? And I think that question is what started leading me here to this, to creating again, to exploring, to documenting this next chapter of my life, and maybe figuring it out in real time, together. So where do we go now? That's the question, right? Because I've spent so much time talking about why I left America, what it took for me to get here, and what it's felt like starting over, that eventually you hit a moment where you're going to go, now what? And if I'm being completely real with you, I'm still figuring that out too. But maybe that's the point. Because one thing leaving America taught me is that freedom looks really different than I thought it would. Freedom always sounded like this big patriotic idea. Flags, pride in working hard for the American dream. And I believed that for a really long time, until I started paying closer attention to healthcare, to burnout, and division. The feeling that people are working harder than ever and somehow still barely able to keep their heads above water. And little by little, I started realizing that the version of freedom I'd been sold didn't really feel very free to me anymore. Not in the way I wanted life to feel anyway. And weirdly enough, moving here changed my perspective. Not because England is perfect, trust me, it definitely is not. But because it made me slow down enough to start asking different questions. Questions like what actually matters to me and what kind of life do I want? What pace feels healthy for me? And the biggest one is what actually feels like freedom. It took leaving America for me to even think about true freedom. In America, I think freedom has just become a term thrown around without any substance. No one really asks, how free are we? Or are we free? Or is it just an illusion? I was always taught that America is the land of the free. The only country that gives you your freedom. But is it? For me, freedom started to look a lot less like hustle culture and more like peace, time, health, community, some kind of a balance. Walking my dogs or jumping on a bike and taking off in the countryside, getting to walk through castles that have been there longer than America has even been an idea, getting to learn history and where I came from, and giving myself permission to build a life that actually feels aligned with who I am. So I think that's what this channel is really becoming. Not just American guy moves to England, but a little bit of bike rides, backpacking trips, history and castles and travel, little hidden places. What are some places in England that you think I really shouldn't miss? Let me know down below in the comments. And of course, Oliver and Charlie, who, let's be honest, are probably the real stars of the whole thing anyway. And maybe what leaving America taught me about freedom is this. Freedom isn't always certain. Sometimes freedom's finally being honest with yourself about what you want, about what matters and what kind of life you actually want to wake up to. And maybe, if you're lucky, freedom looks a little bit like standing at the beginning again, even if it scares you. So if that sounds like your kind of journey, stick around. Like, subscribe, and follow along. Put your kettle on. We've got a lot to explore together. Until next time, keep showing up, keep moving, and keep sipping from the good stuff.